warmth, no breath, shall testify thou liv'st. Each part deprived of supple government shall stiff and stark and cold appear like death. Now, there art thou dead, and in this borrowed likeness of shrunk death thou shalt continue 24 hours, and then awake as from a pleasant sleep.
So there's this guy called Roland Tembo in Steven Spielberg's The Lost World. He's the baldy badass with a blunderbuss, played by the great Pete Postlethwaite. Over the years, Tembo's become a fan favourite of the series, one of those minor characters that earns a following far greater than the time on screen seems to warrant, largely a result of Postlethwaite's compelling performance and, I believe, the enigmatic handling of the character's exit from the film. It's this exit that I want to talk about, partly in response to my distinguished friend Terradome's recent video about Tembo being a loser, a notion that I don't necessarily disagree with, but I have a different perspective on. But in order to get there, I first feel it's worthwhile to go over some other things that I think are relevant. Here are those things.
Saddle up! Let's get this movable beast underway!
So I want to stress that this isn't a perfect parallel, as Tembo isn't out for vengeance against the Rex based on a past encounter like Captain Ahab in Herman Melville's Moby Dick, but I still think it holds weight and the comparison has value. It was only on a rewatch for research for this video that I noticed the film actually references Captain Ahab directly in a line of dialogue delivered by the character Nick Van Owen.
Making friends with Ahab, huh?
So this Ahabian allegory was clearly on the minds of the filmmakers too.
Naggers, stay ready. He's bringing them out to you. It'll be a oh hell, the fat head with the bald spot, fried tongue.
In The Lost World, Tembo was hired to lead the expedition for the benefit of his employer, Ludlow, and by extension, InGen, but he takes it over for his own selfish purposes.
There are two conditions. Firstly, I'm in charge, and when I'm not around, Dieter is.
Just like Ahab in Moby Dick was hired to captain the whaling ship the Pequod, but uses it to exact revenge on the animal that disfigured and nearly killed him years earlier.
Was it not Moby Dick took off thy leg?
It was Moby Dick that tore my soul and body until they bled into each other.
This quest to slay an animal to fulfill a psychological need is present in both characters. For Ahab, it's about revenge. For Tembo, it's about restlessness and the thrill of the hunt. A sort of Venator's Weltschmerz. Over the course of the film, we're shown how determined he is on his quarry. It's the sole thing he cares about and his only reason for being on the island, even choosing to forgo his fee just for the glory of hunting a Rex.
Second condition, my fee. You can keep it. All I want in exchange for my services is the right to hunt one of the tyrannosaurs. A male, a buck only. How and why are my business. Now, if you don't like either of those two conditions, you're on your own.
Captain Ahab does a similar thing when he volunteers his share to the crew in return for their dedication to his mission to kill the white whale.
When Moby Dick is struck and killed, on that day you shall have my share. My 10% of the profits of this entire voyage.
Tembo, despite numerous setbacks, eventually achieves this, and he has his dance with death, which proves anticlimactic, and when coupled with the loss of his hunting partner and friend, Ajay, he arrives at his turning point. He quits the life.
What's the matter?
He didn't make it. Ajay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's like if Captain Ahab came to his senses and foresaw the folly in chasing Moby Dick and realised how it was going to destroy him. For a character like Tembo, that's a huge thing. There's a moment in the film where Vince Vaughn's Nick Van Owen almost seems to inhabit the role of First Mate Starbuck from Melville's novel as the foil for the Tembo character. He at first attempts to reason with him, but then turns to direct action when that doesn't work.
Seem like you have a shred of common sense. What the hell are you doing here?
Someone on this island is the greatest predator that ever lived. Second greatest predator must take him down.
You gonna do that?
If he doesn't surrender, yes.
Let me see it for a second.
No.
Captain Ahab, I am game for any kind of death if it comes in the way of the business we follow. That they know. But I came here to hunt whales, not my commander's vengeance.
I see a madman beget more madmen. Yet could I cure their madness now. Great God, where art thou? Shall I? Shall I?
Like Starbuck, he sees the wasteful destruction in the endeavour and the madness inherent in it. It's far more a reflection on the man than it is the beast.
The animal exists on the planet for the first time in tens of millions of years, and the only way you can express yourself is to kill it.
Be enraged with a dumb brute that acted out of blind instinct is blasphemous.
You dedicate all your time and energy towards killing this animal. Your every waking moment is spent fantasising about its demise. You see it in your dreams, and yet the white whale doesn't even know you exist. The buck Rex doesn't even know that Tembo exists. He needs it more than it needs him. That's sad. That's tragic. There is no folly of the beasts of the earth which is not infinitely outdone by the madness of men. Tembo embodies the quintessential English sporting gentleman. He has a strong moral code, showing concern for the welfare of women and children, and a traditional sense of honour. Like the character Lord John Roxton in Arthur Conan Doyle's Lost World, from which the movie takes its name, Tembo relishes the risk involved in hunting dangerous beasts. A sporting risk, young fella, that's the salt of existence. Then it's worth living again. We're all getting a deal too soft and dull and comfy. Give me the great wastelands and the wide spaces with a gun in my fist and something to look for that's worth finding. That's not a cowardly existence, that's brave, recklessly so. Tembo single-handedly takes on a T-Rex. His sense of duty and commitment to the completion of his task veers into destructive egoism. He most definitely is selfish and rash, and that's the point. This is his monomania. What might be perceived as the moment of his cowardice, his packing up and leaving when dealt a personal emotional blow, is actually his transformational moment, such that it is. The great white hunter hangs up his gun and steps away from the hunt. There's no anger, there's no Ahabian vengeance. It ends not with a bang from a rifle, but a whimper. It's muted, tragic, and poetic. For all men tragically great are made so through a certain morbidness. That morbidness for Tembo was the thrill of the hunt, and the associated risk of death. He hunted the Rex precisely because it was so dangerous. The most dangerous thing you can hunt. Up to now, Tembo was jaded, bored, having exhausted everything the world had to offer.
But we always had such great success together, you and I.
Just a little bit too much, I think.
How do you mean?
True hunter doesn't mind if the animal wins. But there were not enough escapes from you and me, RJ. We were a firing squad, don't you think?
He wanted to feel alive by being close to death.
Remember that chap about 20 years ago, I forget his name, climbed Everest without any oxygen, came down nearly dead. And they asked him, they said, why did you go up there to die? He said, I didn't. I went up there to live.
In the end, Tembo achieves this. He bags his white whale, the ultimate quarry. But his triumph was ultimately unsatisfactory. The adrenaline fades, the thrill is gone, and he returns to aimless frustration. He wept, for there were no more worlds to conquer. This realisation, compounded by Adja's death, becomes a Pyrrhic victory for Tembo. It takes a toll so great it feels like a defeat. That's the power in the conclusion of Tembo's arc. It's quiet and reflective. Having him reappear at the finale of the film, guns blazing, to save the day, is not only not required for a complete character arc, but it adds nothing, besides providing a more cliché, generic Hollywood twist ending. Tembo's exit is interesting precisely because it's enigmatic. For me, that's enough. I don't need another second with that character after he gets on that chopper. The implication of him walking off into the night with his rifle dismantled and in its case and not slung over his shoulder is enough of a signifier of his changed perspective. I certainly don't need to see him auction off his trophy collection and set up an animal sanctuary to right his previous wrongs, although he'd be in good company doing so in these films. What's that, like the fourth, fifth time it's happened? Anyway, in summary, I guess you could say Tembo is indeed a loser, in the sense that his character experiences loss. There's no denying that, but he's certainly not unsuccessful in his quest, and any idea that he doesn't confront his demons or shirks his responsibilities seems to me to miss the point. His demon is his own reckless obsession, and him attaining this realisation for himself renders his story complete. In Moby Dick, it proves to be the end of Captain Ahab. In The Lost World, it might just be Tembo's new beginning.
There's a job for you at the park in San Diego if you want it.
No, thank you.
I believe I've spent enough time in the company of death.
Clearly his final line's a bit of dark wordplay. He means he's spent enough time in the presence of death, but by using the word company immediately after Ludlow just offered him a job at InGen, it gains that double meaning. He was blinded by his own ambition, fatally so. That's Jurassic Park.
These violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die, like fire and powder which, as they kiss, consume.
For Roland Tembo, it was death or glory. On Las Cinco Muertes, there was only death. 5 of them.
Crap. That's what that was. A load of bloody crap.
Land of open bloody glory, eh?
You bastard!
Sorry, love. I'm run off my feet.
Where the bleeding hell have you been?
Under constant threat of like fate, we might never have heard of this massacre, this bloodbath. But what the fuck does that matter?
What are you in for? Cut a man's arm off with a meat cleaver. You?
Oh, we've got a real job on now, ladies. But we'll crack it, no sweat, no sweat.
You're an old guy with a fucked up face who don't know his glory years are behind him. I ain't fucking working for you. Got it?
No, they either geld a horse with a knife or with the chemicals. And your daddy said no to me. I did him the chemical way.
I implore you, Mr. Keaton, believe me. Mr. Soze is very real.
Death's door. The bastards still take the piss.
Frega.